Hey everybody, and welcome back to the board meeting. Today I'm going to be recapping Gameapalooza, which was last Saturday, June 1st. But first I'm going to kind of go over some things. I've been very busy recently. This last month has been pretty nuts for me. And so if you've looked at some videos and you're like, well, he hasn't put out a lot of stuff lately of the normal stuff he puts out. Well, that's because I've just been so busy. I haven't been able to play a lot of new games. I've been playing some older games that I've played a bunch, but I haven't been able to put out a lot of new reviews recently. That'll come back soon, hopefully, because I've just now everything should be slowing down a little bit. As far as what I'm busy with, first I went down to Texas for a week. I drove down there, and then drove back up here. That's a long drive down there. We were very busy doing all our stuff down there, seeing my girlfriend's family and stuff, and going to see some things. Got to go see NASA, which was really cool. I've had my regular work schedule like usual. I work my regular job. My son is moving in with me full time. He lives across the state, and I still see him very frequently right now, but now he's moving in with me full time. So I've been getting the house ready, getting his room ready, prepared for that. I just had Gameapalooza, which I'll be going over for that, but that's like a year-long process, like getting ready for that. I have a side job, and then I also have YouTube, which is another side job. So I basically have three jobs right now, along with my weekly gaming nights that I run. And now last month we started a teen game night at the Beulah Public Library that my friend Scott and I run, and we've been doing that for the last month and a half. It's been wildly successful compared to what we were kind of thinking. When we started, the librarians were like, well, it'll be a good day if like four of the kids show up. This is small town games. And the first week we did it, we had 7 kids show up. Then the second week we had 12 kids show up. And now this last time that we did it, we had 14 kids show up, and a lot more are expected to come later on. So that's been very good, very fun. But let's get into the Gameapalooza stuff. And what is Gameapalooza if you don't know? Gameapalooza is like this board game day that I run over in Hazen. We call it North Dakota Gameapalooza. This was our 5th annual one that I was running, and I rent out the city hall in Hazen, and I invite a bunch of people. I try to get a bunch of people from around the state to come to it. And basically, it's just an all-day game-a-thon. For Friday, the day before, I went to the city hall. I set up all the tables. I had a friend, Josiah, and very much appreciated him helping me set up all the tables and stuff for that, setting up all the chairs. I brought over 200 some games that night for the giveaways and the marketplace. I brought 100 games that I'd been buying throughout the year to give away to people. And then I had this marketplace where I put over 100 of my games in to try and sell those games to kind of thin out my collection a little bit. And then, so that was a couple hundred games. That was a full load in the Trailblazer. That was a haul. Then I went back to my house and loaded up the Trailblazer with my games that I was going to be playing and teaching for the next day. And so the next day, Saturday, June 1st, is when Gameapalooza started. I got up and I left and got there about 7:30, maybe 7:45 or so, and brought in another about 150 of my own games to bring in there to sort of have like a little bit of a library for some people that didn't bring games and for them to play. And yeah, just set up everything. Then people started filtering in. And throughout the day, I played to the best of, I try to keep track. I think I played 17 different games, and I played a lot of these games multiple times each game. Each game I played a few times. And it was a great day. It was a great day. And I'll just go through all the games that I was playing for that day, starting in the morning. I brought my Crokinole board. And so right when we got there, I taught a couple people to play how to play Crokinole. And then I left it there. Crokinole was a big hit throughout the whole Gameapalooza. It was constantly getting played. And we were there from 8 in the morning, and then I left at 3 in the morning. And almost that entire time, there were people at that Crokinole board. So I think I'm going to buy another Crokinole board. And so I have a couple of them for this event because so many people seem to like it. So yeah, I played Crokinole. I played Century Golem Edition with this nice couple that I met that came from Dickinson, and taught them how to play Century Golem Edition. One of my favorite like introductory sort of games where it's just set collection where you're trying to get so many these types of gems, turn in those gems to buy golems and get points for them. Great, fantastic game. They seem to really enjoy it. So yeah, Century Golem Edition. The next game, I actually sold my copy of Ethnos, which was hard to do, but I've got Archaeo Society, which is the new rethemed version of that game, and I'm like, do I really need both of them in my collection? And I finally said, well, no. So I sold Ethnos, and these people, they bought it, and they started setting up, and I had never met these people before. They were from way out of town as well, and they were actually from Fargo, which is like a 4-hour drive from here. So it was nice that they came to this. And, I was playing with them. You always forget how great games are when you haven't played them for a bit. Because I hadn't played Ethnos since Archaeo Society came out. And yeah, Ethnos is still one of the better games out there. Next, my girlfriend was there, and I, and Steve, one of those locals, decided to play a couple games of Point Salad. Point Salad, still a great game. You're basically getting vegetables, and you have scoring cards that you're going to be getting throughout the game to tell you how you're going to be scoring all these different vegetables that you're grabbing. It's such a simple game, but it's still one that continues to come out to the table maybe almost once a month at this rate. It's crazy that this game has had such sticking power, and it continues to come to the table. Next, I went over to a different group, and we had a large group, and we had, I think, 8 or 9 people, and we played a big game of Secret Hitler, a social deduction game, where one group is playing as the socialists, or fascists, one group is playing as the liberals, and you're trying to figure out who are the fascists and who is Hitler, trying to find them, and pass some certain political stuff going on. A fun little game, and especially higher player counts, these social deduction games tend to work really good. So I played a big game of Secret Hitler. Next, I went over to my friend Dan and his kids, and they were playing Equinox. So I got to sit down and play a game of Equinox, which Equinox is basically, there is I think 10 different animals, and you're playing these cards in these rows, and basically the animals are, I think, fighting each other off until there's only 3 animals left. Nobody's playing as a particular animal, but you're betting on which animals are going to be left alive at the end of the round, and there's only going to be the 3 left. I think it's a great game, and this is one I actually sold to my friend because it just wasn't coming to the table very much for myself, but he enjoyed it so much, so he bought it off of me, and he brings it to game night pretty often. He likes it a lot. I think it's a good game. So there's Equinox. Next, there was a lot of younger children at this Gameapalooza, more so than I've had in the past. It was almost more like of a family environment this time than before, because there was probably 20 some kids that showed up to Gameapalooza. So, and I noticed this one young girl and her brother were walking around, and they seemed, kind of just not really doing much. So it's like, hey, do you want to play a game? Do you have any games that you brought with? And they had brought an Uno with, and obviously not game that I particularly enjoy that much. It's just Uno, but they wanted to play that, so I sat down and played a couple games of Uno with them, and they enjoyed it. I had a good time with them. So yeah, there was Uno. Next, I went over to some people. They came from Jamestown, and we played a game of Barren Park. And Barren Park is this tile laying game where you're placing out these polyomino shapes on this map, and you're trying to fill out these 4 squares with these polyomino shapes. And some of the tiles are worth points at the end of the game. Whoever's got the most points on their board wins. It's a very simple game by Phil Walker Harding, but I had not played it for a couple of years, so this was nice to sit down and play a nice game of Barren Park with. And I'm like, oh, this is a good solid game. It definitely is, like most Phil Walker Harding games. Like it's simple, but it's got some depth. Easy to teach. Barren Park. Next game, I sat down with Josiah, and his family was there. Oh, Josiah wasn't at this game, but I sat down with his mother and some of their kids, and we played a few rounds of Dungeon Mayhem. And Dungeon Mayhem is this all-out fighting game, very simple card game where where you're playing out these cards and damaging people, and it's basically last person standing wins. Very easy to understand. We played like 3 games of this back to back to back, and Dungeon Mayhem has got like a soft spot in my heart because when my son was younger, me and him played this game relentlessly. He loved this game. I've got the couple expansions for it where you can play as different characters. It's a fun little fight 'em up game. Next game, I sat down with some people from Garrison, Dan and Tammy. I think they're from Garrison, and we sat down and played the card game Arboretum. Arboretum is one of those games that it is relatively simple, but there's so much depth in your choices, there's not like a ton of rules, but it's like you need to have the the most cards of that particular tree type in your hand in order to score those trees that are on your board. So you might make like this huge section of trees that are worth points, but if you don't have the most points of that tree in your hand, you're not going to score it. And then there's like ones cancel out eights, and there's some little tiny little rules in there as well. But it's one of those games that just hurts my brain every time I'm playing it. I'm like, I should put it here, but then no, I need to grab this. And you also have this thing where you, at the start of your turn, you're drawing 2 cards, but at the end of the turn, you have to discard a card. And when you're drawing cards, you can take from other people's discard piles or from the actual deck of cards. And there's just a lot of choice in this game. One of the better card games that is out there, Arboretum. Next, we actually sat down and ate right now because I had bought a ton of pizzas to get delivered to Gameapalooza, and so everybody was sitting around kind of just talking now and eating pizzas and cheesy breads and breadsticks. And after that, then I sat down with Dan and Tammy again, and we played Avatar: The Last Airbender, Fire Nation Rising, which is part of the Rising series of games that I really enjoy. The Thanos Rising, there's the Batman Who Laughs Rising, there's the Star Wars Rising, there's the Harry Potter Rising one, the Death Eaters. And it's a very simple, like, I shouldn't say simple, it's a dice allocation game where you're going to be rolling these dice and assigning these dice to either characters or enemies. When you assign them to the enemies, they take damage. When you assign them to characters, those characters come into your little army that you're building in front of you, and they're going to give you special abilities. It's a great series of games, but I have to say the Last Airbender one is probably my least favorite out of all of those, even though it might be my favorite themed one. But as far as like the mechanics and stuff, there's some little tweaks in it that I don't really prefer, but it's still a solid game. So yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Fire Nation Rising. Next, we got everybody together and we played a big giant game of The Ultimate Werewolf, which is a big social deduction game. You can play this game like up to, there's my dogs right here. You can play this game up to like 100 people basically, and some people are the villagers and some people are the werewolves. The villagers are trying to find the werewolves, and some of the villagers are also going to have special abilities along the way. And it's just a fun way to get like everybody who is there to come play one particular game and have a good time. So yeah, that was fun playing The Ultimate Werewolf. Next, I got to sit down and play The Loop, and this is a cooperative game that I absolutely love. This is a game that you're moving around this board, and Dr. Fowl is moving around this board, and the board is actually different eras in this timeline. And Dr. Fowl is going around and creating clones, making time vortexes, which are bad things. And you're going around trying to destroy his clones, trying to complete certain objectives. But my favorite part of The Loop is, and always will be, the little gimmick of there is the little tripod, little tunnel thing that you're throwing these cubes in, and those cubes can go in any of 3 directions, and if ever there's more than 3 cubes on one spot, it vortexes and it destroys that era. And if you get 4 vortexes, you lose, or if one place that already has a vortexes again, then you lose that way. And you're just trying to complete so many objectives in the game. It's so good. I love The Loop, and it's still one of my favorite all-time cooperative games. Next, we played a game of Marvel United. That's also one of my favorite all-time cooperative games. This is also one that we're playing currently at the teen game night that we've been teaching at the Beulah Public Library. And so Marvel United is always a good time. I always enjoy when we break out Marvel United and play all these different characters, play against all the villains. All the villains really switch up the game. So yeah, Marvel United. Next, we played this game called Snow Time, and I've talked about Snow Time before, and I always feel like it's an underrated game, but I've never played it at 5 players, and it definitely doesn't work as good as a 5-player game as it does as a 3-player game. In Snow Time, you basically have a hand of cards. Everybody's got the same hand of cards, and simultaneously you're going to put that card, one of the cards down, and that's where your person goes on a tree. There's 7 spots on this tree. If a person plays a card that is above you, so if they play the 7, you play the 6, they take out the person below them and they get a point. There's also going to be these fruit that are on these trees. If you're alive at the end of the round, you're going to take these fruit, and the fruit are worth points. So you're trying to, oh, I bet this person's going to go here, and this person's going to go here, I should go here. And there's different ways you can score points, but it's very light game. But yeah, I just don't think it worked very well at 5 players, but at 3 players, it's fantastic. Going to the next one. Next one, game number 16, is a cooperative game as well. Apparently I was in the mood for cooperative games today. This is Horrified. We played the original Horrified with the Universal Monsters. It's been a while since I've played the Universal Monsters edition of Horrified. This one, we tried to play on Legendary, and I've still never beat this game on Legendary, where you're versing 4 different monsters. I play it most of the time against 3 monsters, and I win pretty consistently in Horrified if we're playing 3 monsters. But when you play 4 monsters, I still have not won. I don't know if I'm just really bad at the game, but we played I think it was a 4-player game of this, maybe 5, I can't remember. But that was, Horrified is always a good time going around killing the monsters, and they all have unique ways that they're acting and unique ways that you have to kill them. So that's always fun to break out Horrified. And the last game that I played before we took everything down and cleaned the whole place up was Unmatched. And Unmatched, one of my all-time favorite games, a fighting game where you're just choosing a fighter and you get a deck of their cards and you're fighting against other people. When we play, we always play 2 versus 2. A lot of people prefer this game as a 1 versus 1 game, but we played 2 versus 2. So we had 4 players. It was me I was playing as Houdini. My partner Thatcher was Alice, and then my friend's son played, and he was the Raptors, and Scott played with him, and he was Tomo Gozen, one of the newer fighters out there. And it was a close game. I was the first one that got wiped out with Houdini, but luckily I did enough damage where my partner then was able to survive, and then he ultimately won for us. But it was a really close game. Unmatched is always great, but after Unmatched, we started cleaning up and putting away the tables, putting away the chairs, making sure all the garbages were taken out, and then I finally got to leave, and it was around 3 in the morning. That's kind of how it's always been for the last several years, is that, you know, I go there early in the morning, and then I leave, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. Almost every time we do this, that's about when I leave. But it's always such a fun time. It's one of my favorite days every single year, is to see all these new people, meet new people, play games with, you know, old friends, the locals. And this game night, actually, less locals showed up for this one than I was expecting. We had over 60 people show up for this, which is a good thing for a small little town. You know, we do it in Hazen. Hazen has like 2,000 people, but we had people from all over the state that came for this, and it was a great time like usual. So if you did come and you're watching this, which probably not many people are watching this that came to it, but thank you very much. I appreciate it as always. But that will complete this video. So, I mean, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe to see more weekly content from me, Shane, at the board meeting in the future. Hope you all have an amazing day. Take care.